Welcome everyone. Today I've got Jeannie Magri from Parenting Together Apart for Parents Who Are Not Together. She works with families and we have a collaboration with her with Interact support. We bounce back and forward a little bit, particularly with clients that need some extra support. So I'm very excited to have you here, Jeannie, sharing a little bit about your insights. Ask you to provide a little bit more background on your various experiences.
Yes, of course.
Now, before we do that, I do want to acknowledge and pay respects to any elders, past, present, or emerging that are joining us today or watching this recording. And I will hand over to you, Jeannie.
Wonderful. Thanks, Joanne, and lovely to meet everyone, and thank you for coming in today. I am going to share a presentation that I usually have ready to go, and so I will do that as well. But just to give you a back-end story, which I was going to explain, I might do that now. Just bear with me while I try to get this operating in a way that you can see the screen properly. Can you see the screen now? Yeah? Is everyone seeing the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You're probably seeing more than what you need to, but that's okay. Just to give you, how this all came about for me. So back in 1997, I, at the time, was working in a totally different industry. Had my son in that year. That same year, my ex-husband decided to leave, but he planned to leave. So this was a situation where there was quite a long planning process for him, at which I was unaware of. We had quite a lot of money in the day, and so he'd already started the financial plan to have things removed and sold off, because it was in the day where you trusted everyone implicitly, and being that I was married, traditionally cultured, Southern European, and he had sold off a lot of our investments. At the time, I was totally unaware till my son was nearly months. And then we ended up, it was the first attempt for him to remove him out of the country. So then there was only 12 countries involved with the Hagues. It was just huge. And then moving forward up to 2014, so we were in court he put 18 separate applications to the court, and I was in and out of court over that period of time, at least over 100 times, until 2014. And it was until one of the judges here in Melbourne had actually banned him from ever applying to the courts again. During that time, I obviously started studying, because first I wanted to work with children, started working with high-risk adolescents, did that for about 10 years, studying counselling at the time, and just really working and trying to help family units keep together. It was starting to open my eyes. So I was doing a lot of work through child protection here in the southeast. And as I started reading cases, what was interesting was the beginning of the stories of these families where they were just separating, but because of the lack of services, there was no implementation of support. There was suddenly these situations where they were escalating, and it was becoming more destructive, and these children were ending up in the system. So hence, by 2014, I was able to open up a private practice called Power, Courage, Voice, mainly working in the coaching sector, because I was still studying at the time, helping families to navigate through some of the complexities, networking, and helping to advocate for them. And as that went forward, I finally started to do a lot of work in contact supervision for mainly high-risk matters. And that again was opening up some doors and obviously insight of what was happening and still happening through the family court process. From that point on, PTA very much started to be engineered, if I may say, but we reversed the plan. And I thought if we could start working with families with the intention of early intervention, we might help families to avoid the destruction of the family unit. However, once we started, what we didn't see coming was that we were receiving many calls from parents that had already gone through family courts, had already lost lots of money, had already found that they were still not seeing their children, contravention of orders, and this became nearly 70% of our business. So as we started to grow, the idea of collaborating with other professionals became really important. And then hence I was seeking out mediators to come on board with us, to help us and to work under our culture of trying to keep families out of court. And then I tripped up with Joanne. So Joanne and I sort of realized our heads, our thinking was very much the same on the focus of keeping families out of the courtroom, and as at best trying to develop strategies for them to help them to work on the common goal of either what that pathway could look like in the term of co-parenting. And then, of course, we've now been doing this, I think, for nearly 18 months together as a team. And it's been great because we've had a lot of learning along the way and seeing how well the priming of parents from our end at PTA, and that's through our programs that we've since developed. So there's a lot. So that's a little bit about my background, still advancing study from my end as well, just so you know. We're still working towards, as you all know, when we're trying to study and balance the work life and family life at the same time. That's a little bit about what I'm doing personally. PTA, basically, we are a new age parenting practice that support parents through the journey of separation. We provide our services through the Power Courage Voice platform, where we still have a lot of families that still come to us where they just feel no longer encouraged by the services that are sitting outside the space of some of our programs that we offer. Our PTA clinics, we've worked now with probably over at least 100 families since 2014 and have helped to navigate them through the process of separation. And then, of course, we have our other services that are collaborated with our, what we call our PTA network professional partners team. So this has been also incredibly successful for us to help build the right services for our parents as they come through our services as such. So our priming for our parents is helping for parents to be prepared for mediation and the legal pathway, because as you can all appreciate, we have parents that are either have never ever seen the light of mediation or a lawyer's office, or we have parents that have already gone through the process and are very much in a negative headspace about returning. And so, and for many valid reasons. And so from our end, it's about becoming that first step for them to come to us and for us to be able to really just peel away what their concerns are and to start rebuilding or reforming their confidence so that they understand what are the steps that they need to take. This starts to build up a very positive working relationship with our parents, but it also helps them to be more open about the arrangements they need to consider for whatever that may be outstanding for them. The point of call, so I'm not sure if you can read, but I'll talk to you about through this anyway. So part of our point of call is the PTA platform becomes that first step for parents moving forward. And our hope for, as we're moving forward now, is that, and what we're seeing through the experiences of lawyers already working with us, as well as the mediators through Joanne's team, is that where there are hitting blocks with parents are resisting either or, where they're able to come to us, where we can sit with parents, start to work with what are their conflicts, what are the concerns that they have, and start to build up a process where they enter into our PTA co-parenting clinic program. And this is where we provide education and knowledge, but personalize it to suit their matter. And this is our priming for our parents. It allows them to develop an expectation, and therefore they are more open to understanding what they do need to do, who they need to be open to in order to reach the outcomes that they want to achieve. So part of this collaboration with Joanne and myself and our teams is helping to align what can be successful through mediation, and at times where legal support is also required. Because, of course, as you all know, the common language normally used by parents is, I don't want to go to court. But naturally, either they're walking into a law firm first or trying to reach for the cheapest form of mediation and finding that they're not successful on either side because either one of the two parties is not interested to engage, or two, they're just not reaching or finding the right people that are able to service for their matters. Part of our family matters sometimes that require support. So of course we have those sensitive matters where there's evidence that's required, parents that require support because of allegations made against them. We might have those financial subject matters. We have those high risk matters. So those that are experiencing domestic violence, as well as those of child abduction and children going missing through relocation. And of course, those that are victims of serious crime. These are definite legal pathways. And it's interesting that, you know, how many matters we get of especially victims of domestic violence where they're just so afraid that they don't want to take these relevant steps. So this is where we're building that confidence within parents so that they understand what is necessary in order for them to re-engage back into the process where they need to. So the priming is quite simple. We establish the confidence and help parents to be open to the steps required. We provide parents a focus to really focus on their family. And this is also with understanding that they don't feel like they're, again, financially placing or being placed on a financial sacrifice. And it's more about trying to sell the idea that the outcomes we want to reach is for the best interest. I'm not sure if I ever like that saying, but for the children. And therefore, if where monies then are necessary to be sent, we're helping them to substantiate why those investments are important. Referring clients who would less likely also engage and with professional services, and these, of course, of those that are returning back. We are very much all over social media, so our social event platforms as well. We just talk very much on maybe very short minute stories, and this helps to build the comfort for parents. Many of our parents are sitting and luring around the social media platforms, especially Facebook. They don't engage a lot, but they are watching. And so that's where we find a lot of parents are also coming through. Cross-channel referrals is another thing too, where we have many of our services providing us a referral. So they hit a block, parents are not wanting to engage any further, or they're suddenly finding that they're getting second, fourth opinions, which is then creating a lot of confusion. And this is enabling us to really sit with our parents and put everything out on the table, be transparent, and start to navigate, once again, putting on forward those concerns. And of course, for our clients, we're able to return them back to mediation. So there are times where, for example, mediators might be halfway through and then somebody pulls out. They're not interested. They don't want to negotiate on a plan. And therefore, what has been very helpful for the teams now is that they're able to call us up and give us a bit of a background of what's happening, and we're able to then re-engage with the parents' permission. They're prompted to engage with our service as well. And so it's like reverse engineering, and we then work with the parents to then bring them back to the idea of why the mediator and the mediation process or the legal pathway or both are going to be relevant. So it helps also in this comfort and this collaboration between all of us to rebuild the face of what I think we've been traditionally used to working with. So as you can see here, these are the steps. We've got the consultation. We do a review once because our initial consultation is just information gathering for us. We collect the information. We then, and we don't offer them, we don't charge them for the first initial consultations. And so that way then we call them up, we go through with them exactly what needs to be done. By this time as well, we're already engaged in contact with the professionals that we believe need to come into play. So this way already, by the time we're reaching them back on this point, we've already done some groundwork and we're establishing a really concrete step of what needs to be done. So the plan now is in place. They engage in our PTA program, and then, of course, any other services that are required for their particular matter. And then the referral we require through the mediation. So these are working hand in hand. So as you can see, it's a fairly simple process, but it's all our outcome from our end is to reinvest these parents with confidence to return back if they have walked away from a consultation with other professionals. But most important is also for those that are returning and those, of course, that are entering in for the first time.
And Jeannie, if I might just,
of course, please.
Before, so I guess people might be thinking, what's the difference between a pre-mediation and we might do it as a mediator? And what we're finding is that just the depth and the engagement that they can do, not as a mediator, is deeper, and the planning they can do with people is different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think too, to add to that, Joanne, is we totally understand that you're refined to how much you can engage in conversation and how much in depth that you can actually, without folding out of that role of where you question on the impartiality. Whereas for us, we're able to really get into the hearts of our parents, and we call it breakthroughs, and we see our parents separately. We won't see them together. And what has been a beautiful experience is that parents are really opening up, and it really helps us to then communicate in a way with everyone involved, the whys, what is happening, what possibly are those blocks, in order for parents to then re-establish that relationship coming back into the mediation pathway, as well as their relationship with their lawyers. This has been something that I think was initially what my focus was, to really just work with the emotional homes of families. But what we're finding is that once parents feel, they know I've gone through the experience, they know most of our team, one of the criteria is they had to go through this experience, whether as a child or as a parent of separation. So they know that we understand, and therefore what's happening is that they are more likely to be open to the idea of conversation. Once we're establishing that, then we're able then to think about, how do we really need to work with this, staying within the understanding the technicalities that we're all working and complying with, but at the same time being able to communicate safely so that both parents are definitely working on the same goal. And I think that's the depth that Joanne is describing, that we're able to feed back on, that has been incredibly helpful.
That seems to be, I think, the distinction of having, so I suppose it's like a coach and mentor for people going through the end-to-end process. And as you've got there, you might be working with mediators, but also with their lawyers, their criminal lawyers, their victims of crime applications, all sorts of.
Absolutely. And we've become like this centerpiece. So not only that, we've got, even where there's education, and we're working with the education department, where if we've got matters where children aren't going to school, we're we're finding that as a centerpiece, we're receiving all this information, and then we're able to look at what needs to be safely distributed in order for us to be able to reach outcomes for these families, and also provide them the support that they need. Because the gaps where we have found is that parents are maybe doing mediation, spending their $100,000 each to go to court, and then finding why these orders no longer working. And it's because somewhere along the line, parents feel like they're just ticking boxes, but then deciding to retaliate with each other. They have a breakdown of the relationship and suddenly find they no longer want to follow those orders. Our communication is allowing us to be open to everyone involved, and parents have to sign off to give us permission where possible. And where we're doing is that we're then getting a better story to help to reach these outcomes. Our goal is always to keep these families together, but obviously separately, and to encourage the openness. And then parents too, when they're stuck, if they feel unsure about something that's been communicated, they are coming back to us. But once again, we are always reaffirming that there's confidence to be had for the people that are now part of their team. And this is what we talk about, that they're building up this collaborative team, not just how it was once before, where it's just a lawyer after they've gone through mediation. We are really asking our parents now to think, take responsibility, be accountable, and not just tick the box just to get through or to get the other parent out of their life. There's so many of them. Sometimes.
That's a goal. Does anyone have any questions or any clarifications you want at this point? Or
can I just ask, I thought I heard Jeannie say that, sorry, I'll put my video on, I'm just having a bad headache. Did I hear you say that you work post orders as well? So is it like a parenting coordination coaching role? That's all.
So what we do is the Coaching Clinic program is allowing us to do, it's an 8-hour program. It's broken up in over a period of either 4 weeks or 2 weeks. And in there, we actually sit with our parents and we really go through an understanding of what is happening for their children. It gives them a very big and in-depth insight of what their story is, what their journey is. We talk about where they could be going if they don't try to focus on a resolution. But we also talk about why there are some people that are relevant in their particular matter. So this way, then they already start to sow the idea that they need to take responsibility to start proposing what kind of caring childcare arrangement they would like to see happen, what would be best. And through this program, they actually, part of their homework is to start to really discuss with themselves and then with us what they would like to see, what they think is fair. Because a lot of the time, parents are fueled by the idea that they just have to stay angry. And so what we educate on is providing them knowledge about, you've got the next 15 years ahead, you've got the next 10 years ahead. We need to start looking at what's going to be feasible for you, what's going to work. Do you have another 100,000 to spend in 5 years if you want to return? And so once we really start to get in the depths and the layers of everything that could be, parents start to surrender the idea of the argument and the fight. We remove the gloves and then we start to stay focused. Mind you, we are very mindful of the kind of matters, because if we're dealing with what we call the imbalance, so if there's a parent that might be experiencing mental health, substance use, we already know that we have to now start to engage with communicating with the lawyers where they need to be involved, because it's not always going to be a straightforward process. And this also helps us with the other parent that is on that other side, that is dealing with all these imbalances, what their expectation needs to be, so that they just surrender to the fight and understand what that expectation is to move forward. So part of our program is to run a proposed plan. And then once we have that in place and they've drawn it up, what we do then is that goes to the mediator. And so then the mediator already has an insight of where the thinking is for these parents. And so what has been wonderful is we already now have the expectation that mediation is now going to help you to just tweak this and to get this sealed for you. And one of the things too, there are sometimes we get matters where we will say to the mediators, we need to get lawyers and we need to get these as consensual orders, purely for the reason that we can sort of see that not every parents that come in, we get sometimes that instinct that we just need to get something sealed for the moment, just to be sure that there's no plan of, for example, a parent relocating or a parent deciding that they're just going to debate within 6 months and decide to hold back the children, because not as agreements are not always going to hold down the fort. So there's many things that we're always very mindful of, and hence why the lawyers are just as important for us as well as the mediators, because they need to be involved. But this just helps a collaborative communication between all of us to at least get a better chance to help these parents to have a successful run through this whole process.
Yeah, so the role isn't so much it's not as a parenting coordinator, but yeah, it's really often preparing, but the clients tend to look back later when they're having
yes, yeah, absolutely. And as you can see here, our clients, the parents that we're getting. So initially,
I might just. Wendy had a question as well.
Oh, sorry, Wendy.
No, that's okay. I just, before we got too further on into the conversation, yes, I just wanted to ask, beyond DOORS as a screening tool, do you use a screening tool? Or initially, do you just use conversation and questions to draw out the information?
So what we do here, if you have a look here, we actually go through, so we do very similar so that we can in alignment. In fact, both Joanne and I have put together, even our initial application is very similar so that we're not crossing over the repeat.
To help prevent parents having to duplicate,
because it does trigger them for those that have gone through violence and so forth. And also we go through a safety screen assessment as well, just to give us a bit of an insight. We're very mindful, because this has to happen through mediation, we're very mindful of not replicating immediate, like exactly the same, but we go through just a process so that we've got a bit of an insight of exactly what we're also dealing with. But our application process also requires them to provide to us everything that we need. So we know exactly before we actually engage what exactly the situations are. That way we can ask the appropriate questions. Yeah, and as we're growing as well, we're maturing as time goes on, and the type of clients we're getting, we're also developing these on a constant basis as well. So if that answers your question there.
Thank you.
That's okay. That's all right. We then have, I've just lost. So as you can see with our clients, our parents, what initially we thought would be early intervention, this is now what we have. We have parents that come to us that have got no lawyers at all. This could be for a number of reasons. Some are just put off about going back into or seeing a lawyer for whatever they've heard. And our goal is to always rebuild that confidence. Those that already might have criminal lawyers because of orders in place, domestic or protection orders, family lawyers, but they might have already had a family lawyer, but no longer because of affordability challenge. Appointed family lawyers. We have what we call our suburban parents. Their mum and dad are getting along. They just want to get it done. They're the easy ones. The contravention orders are probably a good 60 to 70% of our parents that are coming through have contravened orders. Grandparents, which are about 8% of our business, where they've lost contact because of one parent or another for varied reasons. Mediation where it has failed. And it's, people say, oh, the mediator wasn't good. And we reinforce it's never the mediator, because, oh, look, we understand that there are times where that could be. Joanne's just shaking her head. But I guess my point there, we also then learned that there's also one parent that is just not willing. I know, Joanne. And then, of course, the victims of crime is a factor that's huge for us. We have crossed Chris Sorrentero on our team as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that matter from about 10 years ago, where his wife tried to murder him, and he's got a charity. So we get a lot of people coming through his charity to us where they're 5, 6, 7 years later and they're still in the system. And these people are just so lost. And so we're helping to navigate them and just to get them again to the right people, because these are definitely where lawyers must be involved. It's about just assisting and supporting them where we can. This chart gives you a really good understanding, you know, what parents will most likely need through us. There are other services we have. I haven't spoken to you yet about our project for the parent-child search. But as you can see here from some of the different sectors that I talked about, every parent can do our co-parenting clinic, and most parents can do our mediation. Where we might find it could be disputed is if there's missing children involved. That means there's usually a missing parent. So therefore, initially, we have a team that also, we have a project called Child Search, and where we help in terms of child abduction matters. So we work closely with Hague's and the Attorney General's office to assist some of our parents that are going through, just helping them to navigate through that process. And then, of course, with the crime. But this just gives you an overview of where parents would likely need services from, whether it's contact supervision. And of course, mediation is just always in the play as well. And of course, our sessions here. Our other platforms, just to quickly tell you, so that you know about the consultancy, I was heavily involved in the contact supervision for mainly high-risk matters since 2017. I've tried to steer away, but we still get them through. But we are now looking for a team to take over to assist us in this particular platform. Parent Search. So Parent Search will be launched. We're hoping to launch it this year. It'll most likely be at the end of this year. So Child Search is a program we run to help to find those children that have been relocated through a child abduction and of parents that decide they want to move out of the state. We work with Paul York from Surefact. They're an ex-federal police team that are still able to prosecute. They're still able to present for us in court. So the process, the investigation process, is of top professionalism. It's very sensitive, and these guys are amazing at what they're able to help us with. Of course, the block here is if there's an intervention order in place, and most likely where we are succumbed to a relocation or even a parent moving overseas, they've strategically placed an intervention order against the other parent first. So that then stops us, because we're then considered a third party, and even the investigation team getting involved. So Parent Search is our next plan, because where we can search is to assist is for children that want to seek out their parents. So this is going to be helping us, and we're hoping, and we think it definitely will. What's been interesting, we are constantly toying through the social media platforms, TikTok, which has been an interesting exercise over the last few months, has brought us a lot of attention of young children through to our services. So it's interesting where we're getting even children that just want to meet mum or dad. And so they are wanting to seek out some kind of help. So this will be definitely launched, and hopefully we'll start to see. So that will be mainly, I reckon, we think it could be mostly around the Facebook, but the TikTok space for us there until such time we'll be able to navigate how well that will go. But it just gives you an insight of how much we're trying to establish a service, a one-stop shop mainly for parents. As I said, Power Courage Voice, which has been running since 2014, that is always busy here. Child Support Help Australia with Laurie Fitcott. Laurie Fitcott was a lawyer. He's a lawyer was a lawyer for child support. Didn't like how they were running, opened up his own service, and now he helps many of our parents where they're stuck in large amounts of debt and child support payments, and helps to navigate through communications and these parents. So he's been brilliant for us. Financial rebuild. So for those parents that really need help, we've got a financial team that just help parents to rebuild, because sometimes parents lose a lot of money through the family courts, through separation, and we want these parents to not become homeless. So the idea is supporting parents with planning and helping them to start rebuilding that confidence. A lot of the time what we see where parents are really struggling to make decisions is the fear of the financial impact. So this is where they're all working hand in hand. And of course, our program here with Joanne and ourselves. So I won't spend too much long on this, but this is just the pathway once we're going from our consultation team to when they enter into our clinic. And then, of course, where we hand over to the mediator, and then the process begins with the mediator here. So it's a very straightforward process. What's added that you would not have known otherwise is us across this journey here. But the wonderful part is we really do develop a great bond with the mediators. We already have the mediator in place very much because once you get an idea of what kind of matter you're getting, you've got an idea of the personality or the experience of the mediator, which one would be best suited for this family. And we already start to talk up that mediator before they meet her or him. So what happens there, the expectation is already set. And in fact, in our very last session of our PTA clinic, the mediators actually come in. And so an introduction is already there before we close our session. So there's already an introduction right there so that they know exactly what's going to happen. And the transition becomes incredibly easy. Parents are very open to the idea and welcoming. We find that they're just becoming more open to the idea of really wanting to sort things out. At times, mediators get a block, meaning that maybe they don't want to collaborate. Maybe they've just hit a decision-making component of their plan that they don't want to reach an agreement on. And so this is where the mediator will sometimes reach out and say, Jeannie, can you guys give us a hand? And so they'll bounce with them back. So everything gets paused, and then we're able to revisit, find out what's going on. And normally what gets addressed here doesn't always come out to us. So we can get a bit more of a deeper insight of what is happening, and then we're able to re-engage them back in so that the process can be complete. So that's another advantage, a thing that's been working really well. We run also a thing called white table discussion through our, we do bring life stories so that people can really see what is happening for them. And this is, of course, for matters that are now closed, but it's helping parents to build the confidence and to really see that because they just want to know that we understand them. That is all they want to know. Our planning for next year is we'll be also going to schools to talk at schools as well, to start talking about the collaboration between our services with Joanne and why it's important to reach out to those parents that are in schools that are having problems in trying to sort out how to start. So this is something that we're also working on. And of course, we're going to be engaging in a lot of one-day for parents in different topics as well, so that we're not boring parents and keeping their interests as well in that space. So they're building up that confidence with them that we're not just anything more, but to help and support them going through the process. Other services that we have is we have a couple of property specialists that, so we have Haji that's on our team to help us with the caveat contracts, where sometimes it's amazing, we meet parents and they immediately go and get caveats done on their properties, all sorts of things that parents do out of just rushing, making wrong choices, stress, and then we find the grandparents that have had, maybe sometimes the lawyers do requests for where the parents don't have any asset, that grandparents with caveats to be placed on their property. And we've seen that the end result of some of these, where grandparents then have to leave their property, maybe the process doesn't work well, and outcome of that is homelessness. So we're really trying hard to help to provide these extra specialists that are involved. Cost lawyers, this has become very helpful for especially our parents that have experienced crime, and there's been high costs for them. They've gone to, or parents that have gone to 1, 2, 3 lawyers, maybe lawyers when you have the more specialized matters. And lawyers are just maybe taking on matters that they might not be as experienced in, and then finding that costs have been very high. So this has been helpful for some of those particular matters that need to look at what fees they had already paid and whether there's an opportunity for them to have some of that money repaid back to them to help them to service another for their case moving forward. And of course, our developing and coaching counselling practice as well, which always runs. So I don't want to bore you too much with this stuff, but we are trying to also engage ourselves with you guys as well, with lawyers, with our mediators, of course, and many of our other professionals.
We haven't got too much more time left, Jeannie, so we might just check if there's any other questions.
Absolutely.
But also if people want to engage and interact, we don't want to be exclusive for these guys. So if
of course,
FDRs and want to reach out, or other roles.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Talk a little bit to that as well.
Yes. So part of the collaboration that we've been doing with many of our lawyers is to provide that easier pathway for you to engage with a service like us that builds up our confidence and help to reinstate confidence with our parents coming back. So what we do is, I think of us like that centered piece platform where we create an impartial position for our parents, but help to provide them so the pathway to make these positive decisions going forward. And so hence why I made a mention earlier that the lawyers are just as much important to us as well as the mediators, because our focus for our parents is to really build up that collaborative team so that they know that everybody's really working together. And we found that some of the lawyers that are already on board with us and just working with us have found that the networking between the mediators has really helped to find ways to reach resolution with parents a lot sooner than what would have otherwise anticipated. So there's some of the things that we've been able to establish. I'm not sure what other questions you may have.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Is anyone working in similar ways with a little collaborative cluster of other services or professionals? No? Quiet?
Sorry, I'll speak up. I always speak at these things.
Yeah,
You know that. I'm always the mouth from the north. I'm on the other side of the city. I'm interested in your services because my theory with regard to mediation is it's a bit like doing a stir fry. The better the preparation, the more smooth the cooking process and the better the outcome. That's how I describe it to potential clients. Do you provide these services totally online? Can I refer people from over here? Look, I get people from everywhere.
Yes.
So are your services online? And then how do I perhaps get on one of your referrals so that we can expand?
Absolutely. Good question. So we are Australia-wide. So obviously for those that cannot reach to us personally, we definitely run our program on Zoom. Everything's done online, which is wonderful. And COVID taught us that a lot at that particular time, which was great because we used to travel out to the States, but then that stopped us. And so since we've just found this has worked, parents, we have a booking service on our website. So initially they'll book a consultation, but if there's a referral, we have a referral form that we will send to you, and you will use that form because that way then you're able also to fill in information. One of the things that Joanne and I both realized was that when we were having to get parents to repeat conversation, it was triggering them. So we found a way to be able to get as much information between each other, and that was to fill out on the referral form. That gets forwarded, and then of course then it helps us in our consultation as well because we already have some information and it gives us a bit of an insight of where things are, and then it's about listening for us at the beginning. Yeah, absolutely. So we can, if that answers your question. So it's quite easy. Once the referral form's done, it's sent to us, we fill it out, they fill it out, and we sign it off, and then we make contact. We will text them and we'll let them make an appointment and straight away, and then we'll start the process. So we keep in communication with you quite regularly.
Sarah's got a question as well. Yeah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, mine might be slightly left field or right
Yeah,
field.
go for it.
There has been a recent mediation where tacked on to the end of the mediation has been the mother's request to relocate interstate, which came at a complete shock. In mediation, how is that best managed in mediation? Because I came onto this matter after the mediation, but I was a little shocked at what had occurred. How do you manage a mediation in those circumstances where there is a left field query or surprise?
Yes. So the first question always asked, is there a balance between the two parents? That would be the first thing that we need to establish. The balance being, is there any mental health? Is there anything that we need to take into consideration as to why mum is not making a reasonable decision to collaborate? That's the first. The second is because it's already gone through mediation and it's not working, and the idea that mum is relocating, I'm wanting to safely say 80% that there might be a third party lingering somewhere, and where that could be the motivation for mum to want to relocate. However, that doesn't help our immediate issue. In our case, if we had that matter come referred to us, it gives us that opportunity to really work with both the parents individually and really start to grind through what are the actual blocks, what is happening that is preventing them both to collaborate in a parallel parenting pathway as opposed to possibly co-parenting, and how do we make that work? We need to find out what the motivations are, and without exploring what that is, any other assumption of trying to fill in those other gaps of resolution is probably going to fail. So we really need to pull it right back. What we need is mum, because mum's the one that right now is she's got the strings, and he's obviously on eggshells and he's trying to do everything right. Is there an intervention order in?
No, there is not.
Okay, so there's also now, then there's that so now we've opened up something else where we've got now concerns over a child. What is mum's response? Why is she ignoring this? Does she think it's a problem, or does she think, what is her perspective on why she's not responding appropriately? So we have to navigate that, and we have to explore that to navigate that, and it's a conversation. And these are the things that we can do, Sarah. We had a matter from one of the Queensland mediators. It was just high conflict. They just were not coming off off the fence to make a decision. The mediator sent them to us, and he actually refused to deal with us because for his attitude was, she's got the problem. So what we did at that point, and this is another thing I was about to say, because she might not want to, but we can then work with him to know what he needs to do. So sometimes you'll get a parent that doesn't want to deal with anybody because they have their own agenda. And so the opportunity there for us is to be able to then help the other parent so that they're not missing out on what they need to be doing and how they need to go about things. It's important. We constantly are dealing with matters as they present themselves, but we're mindful of the parent that's resisting. We need to, if we have an opportunity to reach out to her and she's open to the idea, then that might tell us that mum is asking for help, but she doesn't know how. But if mum's completely resisting, and I just feel strongly, my gut tells me there must be a third, I call it the third wheel. Someone is lingering somewhere and she's likely wanting to go towards that space, and that's where she's wanting to go. So that means that agenda is all that she's focused on, and there's a likely chance she will go. So he really needs to put some things in place now to stop her. First of all, the immediate problem is to stop her from relocating. That's the best part about that matter is that it's been disclosed that she wants to travel out. So he's been given a hint, because a lot of our parents do not, when they get up and go, they just get up and go and they say nothing. And parents don't understand. They only have a 6-week opportunity to try to apply to get the children returned. So this in itself is a clear message that she's either planning or not quite sure, and she has quietly, and maybe on her own space of being naive about it, has disclosed that information. But that's a lot, and he needs to act on that. That would be my main concern. But I would send him over, because then we can actually just say, look, because how we communicate with parents too, by the way, we text, we just let them know who we are. So we take the threat away straight away. So we let them know that we're not lawyers, we're not the mediators, we're a service that provide support. And because I've had contact from one parent, I need to reach out to you. We'd really like to have a conversation. We're not going to charge you. It'd be great to meet and have a chat to find out what your journey's been like. It's amazing how many of them, they just surrender. It's like they just want to talk. So,
that's great. No, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, it's just a different role to what we have as the mediator, where sometimes we can do that, but it just extends our range, is the way I think of it. Now, I will stop the recording now. So just before I do, thank you so much, Jeannie.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
The link to Parenting Together Apart in the chat, but it's parentingtogetherapart.com.au for anyone who's listening to connect there. I will stop.